Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm Andy RC, and today I'm going to be comparing the Alde RC 200 GT against the Diatone GTM 515. So after my review of the GTM 515, a popular request was for me to compare these two together, and I can see why, because for the moment they are pretty unique in the RTF world, the Alde RC being the first, of course, and they are both ultralights. In fact, I'd even go as far to say that they are featherlights, and that's a new word I'm seeing battered around the place. And really, there's not much difference between the two, and I think you'll get a good experience from both of them. So I'm really going to be just talking about the nitty-gritty between the two here. So at the making of this video, the 200 GT is 122 quid, or $161, and the GTM 515 is 145 quid, or $192. Now, I'll link them in the below because these prices yo-yo up and down on a daily basis and make me sound like a fool. So if you want to check out the current price, then click the links in the below. So, what does the 200 GT have over the Diatone? Well, for me, the frame is thicker. So I guess in a really bad crash, it should do better. And while both of them have a metal dome protecting the electronics, I think the 200 GT has a slightly thicker material. But, as I mentioned in previous videos, ultralights have less inertia, so it's less of a problem when it comes to breaking the frame in crashes, and the Diatone is available with individual arms to combat that, whereas the 200 GT is a unibody. Now, the 200 GT also comes with a CCD camera, and I've actually switched the Diatone's camera to a CCD camera as well. Now, the Diatone came with the Micro Sparrow, which is a very good high-quality CMOS camera, but with the bi-blades that came with the model, those tend to have lower frequency vibrations than a tri-blade, and I was getting Giallo in the picture, and you will see in a bit that that is gone with the CCD camera. But I've just been told that Diatone are sticking with the Micro Sparrow for bang good. So to get a different camera, you'll have to order from Diatone directly, but many people might prefer the Sparrow. I just prefer the CCD in this instance because of the less Giallo, and I prefer to use the bi-blades for the efficiency. So, the Alde RC also has a thicker cable and an XT60 connector, which I think is a better suit for the batteries people are going to be using with these models, whereas the Diatone has an XT30 and there's a little bit of a bottleneck. And they also have a buzzer built in on the Alde RC, whereas with the Diatone they do give you a beeper, but you have to install it yourself. So on the negative side for the 200 GT, it weighs 200 grams against the Diatone's 188 grams. The Diatone has the long-range Unify with the smart audio, and I think this is its biggest advantage. And it's also got a better polarized Foxeer Lollipop antenna that gives slightly better reception. The 200 GT's VTX is okay, but it's not a patch on the Unify, if you pardon the pun. And there was a huge problem with the 200 GT actually, and that was the foam that they had provided to stop the battery from throwing, and it just didn't work. Every flight I had resulted in a battery being slung, which I thought was really dangerous. It's an easy fix, but you know, if you're a beginner, then you don't want to have that experience. And with the Diatone, this one does come with a silicon mat, which is better, but it's a little bit too small. It does just about do the job though. So both of the motors look similar, but I've got to give it to Diatone for the Sunny Sky branding. And we also have a naked bottom as well, so it's going to be lighter than the Alde RC. Diatone also wins with the props as well. So the Alde ARC came with these low-pitch tri-blades, which are okay, but the Gemfan Flash 51, 52 bi-blades are just superb, and I know you guys are going to want to see how the 200 GT performs on those, so I'll be showing that in the flight footage later. Now, Diatone was going to go with the Gemfan 5042 tri-blade, but after seeing how badly they performed in my video, they are now considering the Dal 5051 tri-blade, which I think is a better option. It is designed for ultralights, and it's much skinnier than your usual tri-blade, and it's lighter as well. I still think that the bi-blades are the better option, but you know, there are a lot of people in the hobby that are so used to the tri-blade, and it's just impossible to convince them otherwise. So I think this is a super option, but I think the price is going to be the flight time and the speed over the bi-blades, but we'll see in the flight footage. And you know, the whole idea of this model is to get the extra flight time, and the tri-blade for me just isn't going to give it that. There's also quite a lot of flex in this prop as well, so when you start adding things like a camera and extra weight to the copter, you will see a bigger drop in performance against the bi-blades. But, you know, it'll mean that you'll get reduced jello with the Sparrow camera over the much stiffer bi-blade, but the weight of these two props is very similar. So, when it comes to the ESCs, they both have 20 amp BL Heli S D-Shot 600 4-in-1 ESCs, and they both perform very similar from my findings, so there's really nothing between the two there. The Diatone does have a current meter though, and the Alde ARC doesn't, which is good for testing, but in reality it doesn't, you know, do you many favours. But they do both have an F4 flight controller with Betaflight on-screen display, and they are both soft-mounted. And finally, when talking about the nitty-gritty, neither of these models came with an adequate battery strap. However, the Diatone is a prototype, so I'm hoping that they change that. So onto the flight footage, and I'm starting off with the 200 GT, and let's get straight into the performance. So this is with the bi-blades and the GNB 850mAh 4S LiPo, and I actually gave it exactly the same tune as the Diatone, and the top speed was 101 mph. And then I did a few more runs after that, and it sort of stays around that figure, just a little bit lower, just slightly under 100 mph in some cases. And that is actually faster than the Diatone was in my initial review, but the props were damaged in that video, and it was a windy day. And it's a flat calm today, so there's no excuses. So let's see what the 515 can do now in the perfect conditions. And the first run was 104 mph, and that is just getting started, because the second run is 106 mph, which is actually matching the speed of the Emax Hawk 5. But then as the battery starts to wear in, it settled around 100 mph, but you know, that's still pretty impressive. So if you are really trying to pick between these two, the Diatone has the edge for the top speed, but when it comes to how they both fly, they are so similar I can't pick them apart. I think my preference is the Diatone just because of the better VTX, and I also think the video is a little bit cleaner as well, and the slightly better reception with the polarized antenna. So, what about the Dal tri-blades? Well, they performed a lot better than I thought they were going to, actually. The speed wasn't quite as high as the bi-blades, however, it wasn't far off. And I do think that this is a good option for those that just can't let go of the tri-blade, but the flight time did suffer severely. So with a 1300 mAh 4S, I got over a 10-minute flight time with the bi-blades, and with the tri-blades, the flight time was halved at just 5 minutes, and that was letting it run really low as well. Funnily enough, just like the bi-blades, sticking a 1300 mAh 4S on there didn't affect the top end too much, despite the battery being 70 grams heavier than the 850 milliamps. And again, that's down to the fact that the 1300s can provide more amps than the 850 milliamp batteries. But for me, I'm going to be sticking with the bi-blades. You get crazy long flight times, which is great for practice, and you get a slightly higher top speed than with these tri-blades. And if I were to choose between the Aldier RC or the Diatone, I'd pick the Diatone. So there you go, that is my comparison between the two copters, and these kinds of tests cost me a fortune in batteries, so if you can afford to do so, then I'll link my Patreon in the below. And as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.
What does perfect even mean? Is there even such a thing? Ooh, can we switch up all the rules and imagine a utopia? Darling, I'm just so fed up with these expectations. They keep weighing me down. My heart is begging me to get the hell out. I'm gonna live inside the upside down for a minute and pretend, honey, I'm a perfect 10. Whoa, whoa, honey, I'm a perfect 10. Whoa, whoa, and if I say it enough, it gets ingrained in my head, and I start to see, honey, I'm a perfect 10. Honey, I'm a perfect 10. Whoa, honey, I'm a perfect 10. Honey, I'm a, yeah. Oh, yeah, I've discussed it with myself, and I'm disgusted with the way we're told to have a certain face, a certain weight, because we aren't pixels on a screen. No, we're human, we breathe. Every single thing we see curated, it's overrated. These expectations, they keep weighing me down. My heart is begging me to get the hell out of my head. I'm gonna live inside the upside down for a minute and pretend, honey, I'm a perfect 10. Whoa, honey, I'm a perfect 10. Whoa, and if I say it enough, it gets ingrained in my head, and I